Hi again. For the next couple of videos, probably 7 or 8, I will talk about the code that is generated by the code generator and how it works and the structure behind it. I will also tell how to take that code and actually use it besides your own code. So you can go in and you can put in your own Django, your own Python code, your own HTML code, and work with the code generator. Meanwhile, you do that. For obvious reasons, when you do code generation in general, the whole idea here is that you isolate the code that the code generator does and the code that you do, because you don't want overrides. I have designed a way of dealing with this. So in, well, 99% of the cases, you should be able to avoid actually doing any changes directly into the generated code. I cannot guarantee 100%, that's impossible, but I have tried to already make the code so things can get isolated. What we are talking about here is this part here, the extensions of the Django code, and I will spend some time with that. In order to do this, we have 4 files that does not belong to standard Django, and they go into each table. We have a URLs extra, we have a views extra, we have a forms extra, and we have a models extra. Those are created the first time you created an application in the code generator, and they're basically blank from the very start. And this is where you can put your code, and by putting the code there, you're sure that it doesn't get overwritten. We can actually force overwrites of these extra files by pressing a button called reset dates. But in general, if you don't touch that reset dates button, these are your safe areas to put in extra code. And I'll kind of show you how that looks in the editor. So let me go to the editor now. We are now in the editor, and I have taken the order handling system that we generated before into PyCharm, because I like working in PyCharm. We have already made a video about the structure of these projects, but very briefly, we have a customers, we have an orders, and we have a products, which are the schemes that we defined. Then we have the main application here, which is called the same as the project. And then we have some standards, which are basically the attachments. We have some templates and some media, which is standard for, well, how Django does things in general. If we go into one of these, I'll go into customers here, and I'll go into the table customer. We will see the standard Django Py files, the forms, the models, the tests, the URLs, the views, and then I have these extra files. There are 4 of them, and actually when I dig a little deeper into API, which will be in a version 1.1 or 1.2 of the code generator, I will probably also have an API views extra and a serializers extra, but that's a whole other story. Let's focus on the extra ones here. If we start with URLs, you will see that if I go to the URLs out and in the schema, out here we are in the customers schema. When we refer to the URLs, we do a bunch of includes. We actually do an include for each of the tables, because we are in a sub folder here. So we will have an include customer URLs that points inwards on this URL. We will have a similar one for the customer products table, but we also point on the URLs extra in here. And basically that means if you have things in your URL address structure that you want to add, well, you can put it into the extra and it will not be overwritten, but at the same time it will be called, because right now we call a blank URLs file, but if you put something in there, it'll automatically be activated. If we look at URLs extra right now, you can see URL patterns, it's just blank. So that's how the URL extra work. If we take a look at the models, we will see that the table definition here, we have a customer where we are referring to the maximal model, which if you saw that video was in the base models where we have defined all these start fields like the ID and created date and created by and all that stuff. But we also refer to a class called customer extra model. That class is imported up here. From models extra, meaning from the file models extra. If we go to the models extra file, we will see a class called customer extra model. This is the one we are referring to. Right now we have a pass statement in it, which basically means it doesn't do anything. But if you want to put calculations or extra validations or whatever, triggers for post deletes or post updates via signals or whatever you want to put into your model, well, this is the place to do it, because that means that whatever you put extra in will not be overwritten every time you do a regeneration of your program. So that was about that one. Then we have the views extra, which is again just a blank file right now, but here you can make class-based views, you can make functions, whatever you want within the scope of what Django does. And these can be called via the URLs extra. So when you make a URLs extra, you can refer to views that's in the views extra. And if you make class-based views, then you want to refer to forms. Well, then we have this forms extra up here, which is also blank right now, but you can make your own forms and just define it there, and again it won't be overwritten. So the whole idea about doing these things is that you have isolated your own code, and the code generator have isolated the code that it does, and by doing that we have the benefits of working with the code generator and having all this automation for a much longer period of time. We don't have to draw this line in the sand saying, okay, now this was the last generation, now we have to do our own code from now on. We can have the code generator help us much further into the development project, and maybe even into the production phase afterwards. Well, that was a little about the extra files. I will make a video right after this that talks a little about other facilities that makes it possible for you to make programs and programming, which is your handwritten programming, and at the same time still use the code generator within your project. Thanks for now, and thanks for listening.